This is the real phishing website that Linus Tech Tips fell for, leading to his Twitter or X account takeover on August 11th, 2024. Now, if you're asking, hey, how do you know that it's the real one? Well, Luke from their team sent it to me. And if you're asking, how do you know that Linus fell for it? Well, he said so from his own personal Twitter account. Now, I know that I've already made like 2 videos about this, trying to track and cover the story, but this video genuinely, seriously, has some technical merit. We will dive into and analyze what the website is made up of, how the phish came to life, and how this compromise really happened. We will showcase the phishing website and the code behind it, but first I want to tell you about the malicious link that was included in the phishing email. This is the URL that Linus would have clicked on, and I won't show you the full URL because I wasn't the one affected, and I don't think that's fair to me to do that with them without their blessing and approval, especially because this is a click tracking link from SendGrid. You can see the top of the URL here, CT for click tracking, SendGrid being that service, and SendGrid is one of those online, mass and scalable email delivery services. This is really attractive for hackers, threat actors, and adversaries because SendGrid is a trusted, legitimate, and third-party service that lets them mass spam out their own phishing campaigns and even add the click tracking link for anyone that falls for the bait. That link, though, will end up redirecting the victim, Linus in this case, to the fake spear phishing and credential harvesting website where they'll be prompted to enter their credentials, two-factor authentication, and anything they might need to gain access to their account or supposedly secure your account. It's an interesting case, though, because the original phishing email, the lure that Linus had fallen for, was actually trying to masquerade as a legitimate, hey, new login discovered and seen on your Twitter or X account that would raise alarm bells, spook or scare the victim, and then lead them to click the link in the email. Now, I have here, side by side, the fake phishing email that Linus had received, and then a real email, the actual notification that Twitter or X would send you if there were a new device seen logging in. This is kind of a cool side-by-side comparison because you can see what's missing here. A little bit of incorrect, hey, placement of the logos. That's not a real too big thing about their size here. It is missing some words, though. The trailing "was this you" that would have been the rest of this kind of question header here. Location would typically have an asterisk around it alongside of, hey, actually the subtext here. That would include some small little notice of, oh, that single line of text, but it's a bit beefier in this rendition. The "if this was you" block is practically the same, but the "if this wasn't you" section would offer 2 links if it were real and legitimate. Hey, suggestions to change your password, review the apps that you might use, but all it is in this is a single bullet, secure your X account now. This link, that URL, clicking on this in his email inbox is what would lead him to that SendGrid click tracking link, and then the malicious credential harvesting website. Anyway, let's get back to the malicious phishing website itself. Now, this is not x.com. In fact, the domain is x-whatever, like login check, recovery account settings, anything. Some silly thing to, again, trick and deceive the poor innocent victim that, hey, they're actually resetting their password. In all reality, they're just giving away their credentials to the threat actor, hacker, and adversary, waiting to receive them on the other side. Let me show you that. If I were to just enter some bogus data here for an old password, I'll do the same to enter a new password, and these don't even have to match. I'm literally just cramming on my keyboard because that malicious hacker wants to collect practically anything that you give it, so it doesn't have any other validation. If I just click change password here, you've got a cutesy little animation, hey, loading spinning circle to perceive that you're actually authenticating, but it gives this odd error. Your old password is incorrect, space before the comma. Please double check it. No extra punctuation there. So it actually has you do this again. And I'm just going to hand jam on the terminal on the keyboard here. It literally doesn't matter. If I send this, well, now it's going to end up loading one more time, and now asking for my email and phone number. Things that could help tie you to your real, genuine x.com or Twitter account. But again, it doesn't have to be an email address. I can fill this out with anything. Same thing for a phone number. The data doesn't matter there. I'm just rolling across my keyboard. The moment I hit confirm, it will then ask me to enter my 2-factor security, which is a good little lead there. Enter your 8 or 6-digit backup code input area, 2-factor code as the placeholder, and if you were to actually enter something here, once you hit confirm, the phishing website will redirect you to the real, actual, and legitimate X Help Center, and I don't know, you could scroll through the documentation and try to figure out how you could get back your now compromised and taken over account. But now let's finally take a look at the code and see how this phishing website is all made up. We could, at any point, just kind of right-click to view the page source, hit Ctrl-U on your keyboard, or even open F12 to get like the browser developer tools. And this is the HTML, or just hypertext markup language, the static structure that makes up the page. I'll open this in a text editor so we get a little bit better syntax highlighting. Now there are a couple things to comment on here. At the very top, there's not a whole lot of interesting stuff to dig into. It's just the usual boilerplate syntax and structure that you need for HTML documents like your doc type, HTML, head, meta tags, etc. It is a little bit interesting to me that they grab another icon for X.com's favicon, noting that that actually is not the real one, so that's just another small indicator. Taking a look at a style sheet with just CSS, that's more static code, that's not super interesting for us, not dynamic or no logic there, but it does load in jQuery. Now jQuery is one of those JavaScript libraries, a little bit old and dated, but still effective here, and it's neat. As we keep scrolling down, there's more images from external resources, so there's not as much load on this page in the server specifically, but there are a couple interesting things when you were to first visit this website. You might have noticed when we saw the redirect earlier that it actually sends you to a domain but has the username trailing at the very end. It actually ends up extracting your username to try to pre-populate the fields, or hey, your profile picture and your username that you might be trying to reset or change your account password for. Remember, it's all a scam, it's all a lie, this is the dupe and the fish. But if that were not there, if it actually were asking you to find your X account by entering your own username, it has a couple interesting breadcrumbs. There is another image source that's included here with a Q8QL-DAOW, whatever, a JPEG image that is not what you would expect. I'm opening this in my web browser, and it's a small image, so zoomed in a little bit, might lose the quality, you still can't see it all super well, but apparently this is an edited image of an album cover from somewhere, some way, somehow, but you might be able to see the Guy Fawkes or anonymous mask in the middle there, hey, just doing a good middle finger flip off. Now, you can take that for what it's worth. I think it's a little bit silly, looks very hacker script kiddie-ish to me, but hey, who am I to say? That is the default image that is present there, but it is later changed out, because when we saw the website just a moment ago, obviously we didn't have to enter our Linus Tech, or again, whatever victim username to get to this page, and it has pre-filled in the actual real profile picture and the name of that account. You would just specify that in the URL if you were using this to target someone else, if you put your hacker hat on and acted as the adversary. So scrolling down in the HTML code, there's still not a whole lot of interesting stuff to discuss, just all the button IDs for the HTML elements that will build out the change password or confirm buttons and input fields, that form that you would fill out. Now, the tidbit that I think is also a little bit fun here, just to squeeze it in, the bottom footer that you might have seen with all these usual links that you tend to see at a website here, they actually aren't links, they're just span elements that don't do anything. Going back to the website and just trying to click on any of this, no, they're not links. It's fake. Down at the very bottom of the HTML code, though, we do see some other interesting bits. We actually have JavaScript finally loaded in to have some client-side code and a little bit more dynamic logic as to how this web page handles interaction. Looks like it's going to end up loading an external file, actually in a config directory relative to the root of the website here, and the openhub.js. That's the name of the file, but you can see the % to denote some other HTTP GET variables, passing in a version. I think that's oftentimes used for just getting a latest cache copy, so it isn't cached, maybe suited by time or whatever. Anyway, I'm falling down the rabbit hole here. This bottom section may very well have been pre-populated server-side to actually specify, in like a templating language, hey, use this value for the username as this is the target, and actually fill it all out and make sure that button is accessible. Now, I have actually pulled down some of the files from the phishing website. We have that HTML source code, but even in the config folder, you saw the CSS that was referenced previously and the openhub.js. That is what we would love to dig into. So let's open that up in our text editor. Oh, and actually, before we go too far down the rabbit hole, in case you are really interested in this stuff, maybe you do it for your day job or you're super passionate about it and want it to be your day job, whether you're doing some of that cybercrime investigation, maybe phishing, email analysis, malware analysis, reverse engineering. Look, if you're working as a security operations center analyst, SOC analyst, or you want to be, I'd love to tell you about this awesome event coming up super duper soon. SOC Analyst Appreciation Day. Security Operations Center analysts are too often overworked and underappreciated. They're doing the most impactful cybersecurity work, but they're never in the limelight. So to help celebrate those SOC analyst rock stars, Devo is hosting the 4th annual SOC Analyst Appreciation Day. It's all to pay some long-due kudos to our world SOC analysts and to encourage organizations to improve their job satisfaction and mental well-being. The online event is completely free and open to anyone and everyone. Live on October 16th, it is packed full with career-focused sessions, preventing burnout, secrets to success, day-in-the-life details for analysts and researchers, and so much more. I'll even be speaking on the rapid response efforts during the ConnectWise Screen Connect exploitation. I'd love to see you there. If you are a Security Operations Center analyst, or you're fascinated by the work and you want to become one, you should absolutely tune in to the SOC Analyst Appreciation. It's completely free, and it's a day dedicated to celebrate you and your great efforts. Sign up for the SOC Analyst Appreciation Day on October 16th with my link below in the video description, jh.live/SOC. Huge thanks to Devo for sponsoring this video. Remember, this is client-side code. This is just what your web browser will execute. It's not server-side code that, hey, the preprocessor would manipulate and manage before it hands it to you as you browse the internet. So there are a couple things that we can still latch onto here. A lot of the top is, again, boilerplate, hey, just grabbing variables to refer to different elements on that HTML page, but actually adding some event listeners for whatever it might be doing on any interaction while you input things into the fields here. I do like, hey, some notion of whether or not the buttons are accessible, whether or not you enter a username greater than 3 characters, or a couple other interesting things here. The first variable that we note is that button for the first time you might press change password. And there's an interesting thing here, because when you click that button, it'll manipulate with the spinning loading animation, that's that GIF, disable the input boxes, and then have some comments here that are in Turkish. I had to use Google Translate to try and make sense of these, but there's nothing all that interesting or telling there. It's just discussing, hey, how it would extract different parts of the URL, and that's how it retrieved the username, like Linus Tech at the very end of the link. With that, it would drag you towards and actually put you in the new URL to reset for that user account, and then call a function getUserX based off that username. GetUserX is down below, and this is interesting. It's using the jQuery $sign to have some magic functions to work with, like making AJAX requests, calling out to other web pages or other websites across the internet over HTTP, and it's going to use a local URL referencing, again, relative path to request folder and API.php. Remember, that is server-side code, unfortunately, so we can't see how that is made up, at least unless we compromise or gain access to the hacker's server and credential harvesting, but that's a whole nother can of worms. What it ends up doing, though, is sending the username that you might have supplied if you were to search for your username without having Linus Tech pre-populated. Returns some information out and then tries to extract some data, splitting it up based off of an asterisk. So this actually retrieves the link to their legitimate profile picture and ends up staging that in the display, their name, and whether or not the account is verified. It actually has some apparently internal database or API to track, hey, what users it might be targeting in this phishing campaign. If you wanted to try something other than Linus Tech or John Hammond or whatever, then it may vary as to whether or not you get a result of that user and their profile picture and information. Either way, it ends up ultimately, in the case that we saw, asking for your old password and your new password, and the button's here to stage this. Of course, it then extracts those into their own variables based off of the element data and information, adding another event listener for a couple input boxes, but ultimately, finally sending this to, with another AJAX request send.php with the parameter type equals first, and data including all of the sensitive stuff that user may very well have just typed in and given to the hackers. Their old password, if that was appropriate there, new password that they want to change it to, and the confirmation new password too. Okay, there you go. We know that now the server and threat actor is still receiving and gaining access to those credentials, but then it sets a little timeout here as it changes the inner HTML to include that spinning animated GIF, just as we saw, the circle loading there, and then it sets a timeout for a work bro function. I love that name here, and then ultimately it's going to end up saying, just as we saw, your old password is incorrect, please enter it again. So just an extra validation step? Hey, just really making sure that they want to get the data that you definitively are going to send the hackers and threat actors. Scrolling down, we have change button 2 and its event listener. Again, just clicking on the button will send everything that you've typed in, trying to have a second step to make sure, hey, you're sending us the good sensitive credentials here. Now this has another function call for step after a little bit of a timeout, and then ends up asking, hey, now enter your email and phone number, just as we saw interacting with the site. At this point, I don't think I need to beat you over the head with this anymore. You've got the idea. The gist is that absolutely anything and everything that the user submits, they will capture and then send server side so the hacker has access to it and can now use it for further damage, like getting into their account, especially when it starts to ask for your 8 or 6-digit two-factor authentication backup codes. That seals the deal. That is really everything that they might need, and of course, that is sent along to the threat actor. I do love the function name here, cookie GG, bro. And you can see the redirect now going to the legitimatehelp.twitter.com. There's a little bit more at the bottom here. Interesting, there's a hard-coded CSRF token. I don't know why. I don't know if that would really matter, but that's all there. That is the end of this client-side code that we can see for this phishing website and the credential harvester. But there is a little bit more to talk about here. Right now, at the time of recording, this website, the phishing website, actually is no longer serving the input form pages for entering your password, two-factor authentication, email, phone number, blah, blah, blah. They actually went to just a 404 page at the time of recording. I saw this got patched up last night as I was trying to get some of the info out in a Twitter or X thread. That is interesting though, because we can see, hey, proudly powered by a light-speed web server, and the domain is still intact. If you were to go to the root of the domain rather than the reset Linus Tech or whatever account, it'll just redirect you to genuinelegitimate.x.com. Using some of the breadcrumbs that we saw in the code, though, especially that weird Guy Fawkes anonymous mask picture, we could use that to look for other domains, malicious websites that are hosting this exact phishing scam. There are a lot of them, and I've seen other folks online share even more, and I've gotten those reports from other creators that they've seen phishing emails and attempts just like this with different URLs. A lot of folks were chiming in on this while I was trying to showcase it in a big thread here, and that is when we saw the website pages go down, or at least return 404 no longer available. But thankfully, I did have some screen recordings while I was trying to play with this in some stealth mode where I could go back to anything that I might have seen while looking into the website. So while we are done looking at the code itself, there is at least one other tidbit or breadcrumb that I would like to showcase from the video that I recorded. When the phishing website was still live and online, we could actually see what the API request would return if we actually fell for the phish and entered credentials. Now I thought this was kind of neat, and I did need to redact a little bit, so I did just take the screenshot rather than walking through the video, but take a look. With the network tab open in the browser developer tools, we could actually see the response when we try to hit that send.php, including our username, password, and everything, and this will actually extract, or even return out to you, telling us that it did calculate and determine this data that it would store and use for their own purposes, your IP address, of course, your region, city, zip code, and GPS latitude and longitude? I know you can just do that with like third-party services and other APIs that are out and about, but it's still kind of crazy. Now, I would like to emphasize that anyone can fall for a phishing email, myself included. Like, I know without a doubt, I'm sure I'll make a mistake and I'll be compromised and I'll be hacked, and this could happen to anyone. Like, Linus is A-okay here. There's no finger pointing, there's no name and shame, it's just something that happens, and hey, threats that we need to be aware of within cybersecurity. I tried to ramble and rant about this in the thread here, but I know that especially as a content creator, getting emails like that, with that lure and that hook and the bait of, oh, there was a new login detected, it sounds like you've already been compromised, but using that as the leverage to then be compromised is wild and scary and spooky, and I think anyone could just as well fall for it. I do have a fun extra Easter egg here, because while I was trying to get all this info out in that Twitter or X thread, I'd actually received the exact same email phishing scam from the actor. They threw it to my email and got into my inbox. And this is just a little bit hysterical. They did have a special note just for me. So let me show you that picture here. They sent me the exact same template of the phishing email, including the missing "was that you" prompt, the missing asterisk and subtext for the location, and interestingly enough, a new subtext that says, "Please remove the post that you published. I sent this to try and reach you." Threat actors try to communicate with me. Note a different Android version there with whatever fluff to try and make this believable. Now you might notice here in our own phishing email, this is sent presumably from info@x-logincheck.com via sendgrid.net. Now I know a lot of folks might be chiming in thinking, hey, we could take a look at the SPF or DMARC details, other header information, things that might help, but it is SendGrid, you gotta keep in mind. If you are interested, I did try to take a screenshot of the headers, hey, the values there, redacting things as needed, but this is basically everything that you might track down, knowing, again, it's coming from SendGrid. DKIM, SPF, all those things should pass, and it's still going to get into your inbox because this is coming from that trusted, legitimate third-party service. But it was very neat to get some weird individual outreach from that actor saying, hey, I sent this email to reach you. And apparently, in the post where I'm mentioning, hey, the site's seemingly going down, 404s with a couple of the pages, there is one response. There's one comment here in this, and sorry, me memeing about, hey, big thanks to everyone. I know I'm nerd snipe with this, but I hope it's fun. There is a little tidbit from James Will. He says, I'm the founder of this project. Check your email or DM me. Now, James Will, default picture, strange individual account here, has about 2 following accounts. I think, what, Elon Musk and ESPN? Yep, sure, okay. 4 followers, and I wanted to follow him just as well so that I could message them. I did send them a message. I tried to reach out the other day, like, hey, is it you? Are you who we should be chatting with? I have not heard back, but would be a little bit interested to see some of the behind the scenes. I don't know, maybe how far down does this rabbit hole go? So James Will, whatever online alias anonymous handle here, hit me up, dude. Hey, sorry, another after video insert while editing. Literally the moment just as I finished recording this video, I did get some DMs back from this account. So again, bear in mind, totally speculative whether or not this is the real actor or not. I can't say for sure, we don't never know for certain. But anyway, look, I got these messages back. He says, hi. Yes, I am the one, as I asked, and I say, hey, great to chat with you. I'm super interested in seeing what you're willing to share. And he says, I'm angry at you for not removing the post. 2.5 million views, you ruined my job. Okay, why would I remove the post? I just genuinely wanted to ask, like, hey, what would draw me to do that? Especially you sending me the exact same scam and fish as a means of communication. He says, if I try, I can remove it anyway with your page, as if he had hacked, compromised me, and gained access. And I said, sure, okay, whatever, but why would I remove it? And he responds, because people will no longer believe in this method. And I'm saying, the method of what? Stealing online accounts? And he says, if it's nothing that concerns you, why are you sharing it? And he responds, yes. Interesting quip here. He says, I'm not ashamed of my job, though I didn't prompt or ask that whatsoever. I don't know, just some psyche moment there. And I said, look, this kind of concerns everyone. It's an attack vector, a risk and threat for cybersecurity. And he says, is there anything that you wanted to tell me? I want you to remove the post. And I said, no. I don't care. I was just curious if there's anything you wanted to tell me. You're the one that asked for this contact and outreach. I'm not going to be removing the post. He says, I'll ban your X account and your YouTube channel. Okay, so I'm sure, dude, is that all? Is that what you wanted? He says, you think you're a hacker, you didn't find anything about me, you just know that I'm Turkish. I appreciate you confirming that. Okay, find my home, find my full name, I'm waiting. And I feel like it's very brave. He's getting real brave behind a keyboard in a braggadocio, kind of cringe way. Definitely giving off, like, I don't know, bored teenager in the basement vibes. And I said, look, I don't need to know anything about you. He says, you wrote hacker in your bio. If you're a hacker, come find me. Like, getting real chest thumpy. I'm like, hey, do you have any extra insight or cool details to share about you pulling off this fish, if it's really you? Any behind the scenes info on the phishing kit, hosting, the campaign? What's your mentality in all this? I'd love to get some of the deets if you want to spill the beans. He says, hey, sure, soon other acquaintances will send it to you, and you'll find out from there, like it's supposed to be some spooky thing. I won't give up, man. I'm like, cool, awesome, sure. I didn't know if you had any value to offer yourself, but clearly not. He says, you didn't ask me how I found your email. Look, I don't care, man. It's in my email. It's public info. Email is used to communicate with people, not a concern for me. He says it's always censored because you don't care, and I do censor my email here and there because I try to limit every now and again how present and public it is, but genuinely it's out and about. That's my email. It's in this video. But I did want to share with you that, whatever that is, however you take it with a grain of salt, but weird one way or another. And again, total speculation. I have no clue if James Will 595911 is our evil actor here, but I thought I'd share that with you, and I really appreciate the behind the scenes braggadocio chest thumpy cringe. And if I could banter a little bit on some of the protections, hey, some of the security little tidbits that you could use to not fall for a fish like this, everyone will tell you, hey, when you see an email that's like, oh, from a service or provider, or a counter company, and they say, hey, we noticed a new login or whatever, if they give you a link, don't click the link. You can go to the direct website like x.com or twitter.com, log in yourself there. People tell you to try to hover over the link in the Secure Your X account now, but I know you can't do that just as easily on mobile. I did see another tweet from Linus where he states he got this phishing email while he was out at like a family barbecue or something, totally frazzled, totally distracted, and in the moment. So I don't know if this was opened on his phone or not, but just curious what the page would look like if we were to use like some mobile device. It's still, I don't know, a little sketch. I don't know if that's responsive or well enough while you're interacting with it. I'm not sure. Still clicking around to see how this might look on like an iPhone or a Google Pixel. It doesn't look all that legitimate. I think there are a couple indicators and red flags here and there. But another super duper important thing to note is that, look, you should be using a digital password manager. Absolutely everyone should, because if you're on a website or a domain that your password manager and a browser extension will recognize, because it knows that you use that service and it's got support for your account and creds there, then it'll either auto-populate or have little notification, little browser pop up and have a little icon to say, hey, we know this domain, do you want to fill in your creds? If that doesn't happen, then it's a website your password manager doesn't know or recognize. So there's a good chance you're on an illegitimate website, and take another look at the domain in the URL address bar. Alrighty, I am done rambling. Thanks so much for tuning in for a little video showcase of this. While I know I went through it in that Twitter or X thread, I hope this is still valuable because I know not everyone's on there and maybe a little bit of a bigger megaphone here. And I do want to say, I know this has been fixed, this has been resolved, they have their account back. I know this is just a lot of hot air and talk, but honestly, I just thought it was interesting. I thought it was neat to talk about another tech content creator and some of the cybersecurity hiccups that we can all learn from. Big lessons learned. I'm really grateful for all of Linus's transparency, and especially his keynote here, like at the very end, he says, it's constant vigilance. It's always something we should be aware of and get that education out there.